Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really taking a scalpel to something pretty specific.
Yeah, we are.
We're looking at the expert consensus around a Premier League fixture. We've got a whole stack of sources, betting guides, analytical models, score predictions, all focused on one match. Arsenal versus Brentford.
That's right. And for those of you who really want to get into the why of sports analysis, this one is for you. Our mission here isn't just to, give you a score. It's to pull apart the logic behind how these experts forecast a game.
Okay.
We're digging for the data points, the metrics that make a prediction feel, I guess, safe versus one that's more of a high-risk gamble. It's about the mechanics of it all.
Okay, let's unpack that then, because when you look at all the sources, there's a clear consensus on one thing, but then the complexity, it shows up really fast. So what's the big anchor here?
The anchor is simple. Arsenal's dominance, home record, league position, that's a given.
Right.
But the interesting part, the nuance, is the vulnerability. Every single major model is baking in a concession from Arsenal.
A goal.
A goal. It suggests this isn't going to be the clean, straightforward win that some people might just assume.
I like that framing. So strength on one side, but a specific vulnerability that creates an opening. Let's start with that foundation then. The absolute safest bet that almost every single guide is leaning on.
Absolutely. The foundational anchor is, it's very straightforward. Arsenal to win.
No surprise there.
Not at all. They're heavily favored. We're talking implied probabilities, often north of 75% at most sportsbooks. And this isn't just fan sentiment, It's a cold assessment of their tactical setup and their proven ability to turn that home field advantage into goals. That is the base layer for everything else.
Okay, so that sets the outcome. But the goals, they tell the story of the match itself. What are we looking at for goal quantity?
The expectation is robust. Over 2.5 goals is a near universal pick.
Okay, so a high-scoring game.
A high-scoring game. And to ground that analytically, the sources aren't just, hoping for goals. They're looking at expected goals, or XG. Arsenal's home XG is consistently sitting above 2.0 per match.
Which is huge.
It is. But, and this is the key part, the models are also factoring in Brentford's surprisingly high road XG. It's been hovering around 1.2 XG per 90 minutes in their last few fixtures.
Yeah, those two together. And yeah, you get over 2.5 pretty easily.
That's the synergy. A potent home attack meets a surprisingly efficient away attack. That's what drives the goal expectations so high.
That combination makes the over 2.5 goals feel very safe. But this is where it gets interesting, right? This brings us to that crucial nuance. Both teams to score. BTTS. If Arsenal is so dominant at home, shouldn't the models be favoring a clean sheet, like a 3-0 up? Why is the expert consensus for BTTS?
Yes, and this is the linchpin of the entire deep dive. This is what moves the analysis past just a simple league table comparison. The justification is that while Arsenal's defensive record overall is strong, their recent form shows. Well, it shows specific, measurable vulnerabilities.
Like what?
The sources specifically highlight that they've conceded big chances from transitions, and crucially, their defensive third turnover rate has ticked up slightly in the last 4 matches.
And Brentford is a team that can pounce on that.
That is their bread and butter. They excel at counterpressing and generating chances from exactly those kinds of high-risk turnovers.
So the model isn't just saying, oh, Arsenal might concede. It's quantifying how they'll likely concede and matching that weakness to Brentford's specific strength.
Exactly. It's a dynamic assessment. If Arsenal was still showing that defensive resilience from, say, a few months ago, the prediction would probably be 3-0.
Right.
The BTTS yes prediction tells you that analysts are weighing Arsenal's small, recent defensive lapses more heavily than their historical dominance in this matchup.
So if we assume that prediction holds, 1 goal for Brentford, how do the experts get from there, from just 3+ goals, down to a hyper-specific scoreline?
Well, this is where you shift from the general dynamics to the most calculated possibilities. The analytical task is basically, okay, assuming Brentford gets their 1 goal, how many does Arsenal need to score to both win and satisfy their home attack metrics?
So what's the strongest consensus then? The 1 score that hits the Arsenal win, the over 2.5, and the BTTS. Yes.
The most common expert prediction you'll see cited in places like FA Cup Sports, for example, is Arsenal 2-1 Brentford.
The sweet spot.
It's the absolute sweet spot. It satisfies the win, it hits the over 2.5 goals, and it fulfills that critical BTTS yes prediction. It suggests it's a close, hard-fought victory.
A victory where Arsenal's attack just barely edges out that defensive weakness we were talking about.
Precisely.
Okay, but I have to challenge that a bit. Arsenal is fighting for the title. A 2-1 win is a one-goal margin. That implies a struggle.
It does.
Given their dominance, shouldn't more experts lean towards something more comfortable? A 3-1, maybe. Or even a 3-0.
That is a critical question, and the answer really gets into the difference between a high probability model and a high risk one. The 3-1 prediction is out there.
Okay.
Sources like Football Whispers cite it as the high-scoring alternative. It suggests Arsenal's attack really puts on a show, maybe they capitalize on some Brentford errors, and just maintain that pressure.
And the 3-0, where does that fit in? Because you see that mentioned by, I think, Sports Gambler, but as a higher risk option. Why is that riskier? It feels cleaner.
It's deemed higher risk precisely because it ignores the very analytical trend we just identified.
The defensive vulnerability.
That and Brentford's high road XG. Predicting 3-0 means you are actively betting against the current momentum of BTTS figures for both of these teams.
You're betting on a perfect defensive performance.
A perfect performance that the recent data just doesn't fully support. So it's a high reward bet for sure, but it's one that defies that really critical BTTS prediction.
It tells you so much about what the experts are actually looking at. It's the defensive cracks, not just the offensive firepower. Let's connect this back to history for a second. The sources bring up past meetings.
Right. The historical context is vital. The source material reminds us that in their last league home meeting, Arsenal was dominant. They won 2-0.
Goals from Saka and others. A clean, efficient win.
A clean sheet, 2-0 victory.
Yep.
Now compare that past result to the current consensus of 2-1 and 3-1. These current predictions suggest more goals overall, and crucially, they pretty much guarantee a goal for Brentford.
So the market is saying something has changed.
The market is saying that the current team dynamics, specifically Arsenal's occasional lapses and Brentford's attacking output, are overriding that 2-0 historical result.
It's pure form analysis. It's about the last few weeks, not the team crests. Okay, let's get into the individuals. The analysis gives us probabilities, but people have to score the goal.
Exactly. And individual form is the multiplier, right? A player on a hot streak completely changes the odds of converting a half chance.
So who are we watching? Who is the reliable Arsenal threat whose contribution is, statistically consistent?
Bukayo Saka. He's identified as the reliable source of goals and assists.
Okay.
When you look at the data, his expected assists from open play crosses are at a season high. He's not just scoring, he's creating high leverage chances for everyone else. He's the engine for both a 2-1 and a 3-1 scenario.
All right, and on the other side, who is the player most likely to deliver that one critical goal for Brentford? The catalyst for a BTTS prediction.
The sources are frequently tipping Eberechi Eze.
Because of his form.
It's driven by his strong current form and his high attacking involvement, especially in the final third. If Brentford is going to exploit that little vulnerability in Arsenal's defense we talked about, Eze is probably the trigger man.
He operates in that space where they could be exposed.
In exactly that space.
So we have Saka for volume, Eze for the breakthrough threat. Any other names cited, particularly for that higher scoring 3-1 alternative where Arsenal is just relentlessly pushing?
Yes. In that scenario where Arsenal needs to close the game out with multiple goals, the focus shifts. It goes to players who control the ball in really congested areas.
So, Ødegaard.
Martin Ødegaard or even Victor Gyökeres are the ones cited as having high potential to score or assist. Ødegaard's role is creating the chances, that final decisive pass. And Gyökeres, as a central target, benefits from all the sustained pressure that Saka and Ødegaard create.
This paints a really clear analytical picture, from the big statistical trends right down to the individual matchups. Let's try to pull this all together for the listener.
Okay.
How do we summarize the core analytical logic that's being applied here?
I think we've established the core logic is all about resolving one key tension. It's Arsenal's elite home dominance versus their measurable recent defensive lapse.
Okay, so breaking that down, what's the absolute safest foundational outcome?
The best safe pick is still just Arsenal to win. That's the unshakable premise.
And the key insight into how the match will actually play out, the dynamic.
That would be the combination of over 2.5 goals play SS, both teams to score. That high expectation is the crucial factor, and it's heavily weighted by current metrics.
And finally, which human variables, which players, are most likely to deliver that specific analytical outcome?
The super goal threats. You've got Eberechi Eze, who drives that expected Brentford goal, and then Bukayo Saka, the reliable, high-volume source of goals and assists for Arsenal.
And this logic, it really reinforces that the score predictions, the 2-1 or 3-1, they're not just random guesses.
Not at all.
They're mathematical derivations that confirm the consensus. Arsenal will win, but probably not with a clean sheet. They're expected to concede, which leads to that tense marginal victory.
Precisely. The goal expectation is driven by a deep dive into those defensive metrics, and that confirms that the historical 2-0 result is just. It's less likely today because of quantifiable shifts in form for both teams.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive into expert forecasting. We've really tried to dissect the probabilities and the data that informs a prediction like this.
Before we wrap up, I'll leave you with one final provocative thought based on that analytical shift we discussed. Given that the experts so strongly favor BTTS, yes, confirming that defensive vulnerability is a key factor, what specific, non-obvious metric? Maybe it's something like fouls conceded in the final third, or the time it takes a team to transition from attack back to defense. What's the next analytical factor that betting models might start to weigh even more heavily?
Pushing predictions from 2-1 to something else.
Exactly. Something that moves future predictions toward an even tighter or maybe even a higher scoring outcome. So keep an eye on those obscure defensive metrics.